All right, now vendor or seller bidding. There can be some confusion about this, so I'd like to just explain this in some detail. Potential buyers may think that vendor bidding inflates the price they pay, makes them pay more than they have to, which is not the case. A vendor bid could be perhaps defined as follows. A vendor bid is a counter bid on behalf of the vendor or the seller, when necessary, at a price at which the property will not be sold, thereby both protecting the vendor's interest in the property and assisting bidders to buy. With an asking price, the scenario is asking price up here, offer down there. And over a period of time, the asking price is reduced, the offers are increased, and you meet in the middle. With auction, by contrast, we start at the bottom and we reach for the stars. Therefore, vendor bidding is at times necessary to help people get into that negotiating zone. So let's run through a typical auction with vendor bidding type scenario. Let's say the vendor would be delighted to achieve a sale price of $820 and they've set a reserve of perhaps $800,000. As an auctioneer, rather than knowing what a vendor will accept, I'm much more interested in knowing what they will not accept. Prior to the auction then, I establish what they will not accept. Say this vendor, $780. They've set a reserve of $800. They may at a pinch accept $780. They will not accept $750. With this in mind, my strategy is, if there's insufficient bidding activity from buyers, I will bid for the vendor up to $750, with any and all bidding over that level coming from buyers only. Let's look at a typical auction outcome then. There are 4 possible bidders. Bidder 1 will happily bid from the start. That's their strategy. Bidder 2 will come in perhaps after seeing some bidding activity. Bidder 3, they might wait for maybe $5,000 bids to be happening. Bidder 4, they'll be that one that just comes in only when the property's on the market and when it's about to sell. So the auction commences. I call for an opening bid. Who will start me, ladies and gentlemen? Commonly, silence, nothing. So I then open the bidding with a vendor bid of $600,000, way below the market value, just to encourage bidders to come in, show their hand and start participating. So let's say I've started at $600 a vendor bid, bidder 1 jumps in promptly at $650, nothing else yet. So at this stage I may bid again at $675 as a vendor bid in order to move the bidding towards true value. Bidder 1 happily bids again at $700,000. Bidder 2 perhaps decides to join in, having seen some activity. They'd say $720. Bidder 1 then immediately bids again at $740. Then perhaps at that point the bidding could pause. So I vendor bid for the final time at $750. Remember, well below the reserve and only to a level where this property simply will not be sold. Bidder 1 and bidder 2 then compete at $670, at $760, $770, and at this point I'll announce I will accept $5,000 bids, which draws in bidder 3. They come in, they've been hanging back, $775, in they come. Bidder 2 bids at $780, bidder 3 bids again, $785. At this point, remember, the bidder may take $780, the reserve's $800, bidding pauses, I'll check with our seller for instructions. At this point the seller says, all right, I was hoping for more, but let's put the property on the market. This action draws in bidder 4, who has been hanging back. We are selling, ladies and gentlemen, $785, going once, going twice, $1,000, says bidder 4. So a bidding battle then gets going between all bidders and has finally knocked down the property perhaps at $802,000. Now, without vendor bidding to help things along, bidding on the property may not have reached a high enough level for the seller to sell. So neither vendor wins the seller and the buyers don't buy. It's a loss all round. There are also occasions when there's only one person able to bid. Not unusual. We've sold many properties under the hammer with one bidder. The auctioneer represents the vendor and we take it through to that level. After all, it's not that one bidder's fault they haven't got the cash unconditional buyers to compete against them to help things towards market value. The vendor bid will help them into a price zone where negotiations can occur. So we were below the reserve with one bidder and the auctioneer. We reach agreement. The property is then declared on the market and sold under the hammer. Vendor bidding, by contrast, produces a win-win scenario, satisfying both buyer and seller. Remember, by law, any vendor bid must be below the reserve and it also must be clearly identified as such. Bidders therefore know when the auctioneer is representing the vendor, and they know they'll have to bid higher than that vendor bid in order to claim the property. A skilled auctioneer will utilise vendor bids when necessary to help bidders towards that negotiating zone, towards the fair value. Therefore, vendor bidding does not penalise buyers in any way, it actually assists them in buying the property they seek to purchase. I trust that helps, and I wish you good bidding and good buying.